Good evening, everyone. I would like to welcome all of you on this platform today. We, the Brahma Kumaris, we often greet each other with the saying Om Shanti, which means greetings of peace. I see from the list of participants with us today, there are some of you who are not from Indonesia, they are from different parts of the world. So, a very good morning to all of you, or maybe a good afternoon to all of you. So, today we have with us, I like to call him Brother Yogesh, because since the first time I met Yogesh, the warmth that he extended when I visited Istanbul for the first time was so good that it just felt like I was with my family there. And he is a profound speaker, he is a personal development leader, and also a workshop facilitator. He speaks on various topics, but one of the topics that I personally like very much is dealing with anger and frustration. So, without further ado, I shall now request Brother Yogesh to take over. Om Shanti.
Hello, Om Shanti, and thank you so much, Sister Javeen, for such a warm and generous introduction. It makes me feel very welcome. Thank you so much. So I'm very glad to be with our family there in Indonesia and, as you say, other parts of the world as well. Can I check, can you hear me okay? Is this all right?
Yeah, if somebody could just drop a message or wave their hand by saying if Brother Yogesh is audible. Yeah, okay, it's good, brother.
All right. So I've been in this study and this practice of meditation and self-awareness for most of my life. I was around 8 or 9 years old when, through my parents, I started attending the BK Meditation Center in the east of London. And so since then, it's become part of the daily life experience. And one thing is for sure, that when one builds meditation and the inner journey into their lifestyle, then life becomes very interesting. And one realizes that, yes, there is a world outside, and that's the world of our studies, our career, family, travel, and so on. But also there is a world inside every person. And that's the world of our thoughts, our emotions, our beliefs, our preferences, etc. And most people give more attention to their outer life and less to the inner life. And I believe due to this imbalance, we have situations in the world where we can do amazing things with technology. We can travel so far, we can communicate instantaneously as we are now across the world. We have great advances in healthcare, but yet we also find very high stress levels. We find problems in relationships, divorces, and so on. And so basically the lack of ability to manage one's own emotions and one's own mind. And I believe this is really the important area in human life with regard to dealing with stress, frustration, anger, and indeed any of those emotions, fear, jealousy, revenge. All of it is very much connected with how well my mind is in my control. And I like to see it like this, that it is often said that sport is a mind game. And sports psychologists will, of course, work on that part of the athlete to train them to be mentally strong and tell them that if you can win here, then you can win on the track, for example. It's also true that business is a mind game. Politics is a mind game. And eventually, the biggest mind game of all is life itself. And hence it has been beautifully said by Marcus Aurelius, the Roman emperor, the quality of your life depends upon the quality of your mind. And those familiar with the Indian traditions will know the phrase, Man Jeet Jagat Jeet. If you conquer your mind, you conquer the world. And so when it comes to dealing with anger, frustration, understanding the mind is a very big part of it. Now, just think of any machine that you may buy, whether it's a phone or it's a fridge or it's a car, but along with that new machine, you also receive a user manual. And that manual tells you how to take care of that machine and how to look after it and use it properly. And so the question arises, well, where is the user manual for the mind? How are you supposed to think? How are you supposed to best spend your thought energy? What kind of attitude is suitable and is healthy when you are facing criticism? How to deal with yourself when you keep making the same mistake over and over and over again? What to do when you are accused of something which has nothing to do with you? So there is a whole science of understanding how to manage your attitude and your mind to different scenarios in life. But broadly speaking, people are generally illiterate in this area. And the result of this is that we develop what I consider to be the worst of all human habits, and that is overthinking. Because when we think too much, we are literally throwing away this precious, precious fuel of thought power. And therefore, the mind becomes tired. And when the mind is tired, then the patience level goes down, tolerance level goes down, the ability to understand someone else suffers, and we have disproportionate responses to the situations around us. We may make a small thing into a very huge issue. We may change a tiny mustard seed into a mountain, and therefore further create difficult emotions to deal with. So understanding all of these things is a big part of dealing with anger. In fact, two things we'll be looking at today. One is increasing our understanding of life and understanding how the inner mechanisms work. The second thing which helps us to improve ourselves is learning how to build a practice of reflection or meditation into our day-to-day life. And these two things together, these really are the two wings to make a person fly, to mature spiritually and emotionally. Understanding and experience, these must go together. So let me start by sharing what I consider to be the three main categories of people when it comes to how we face or deal with life. When I used to work in central London, one of my first jobs, I was working in Oxford Street, and possibly some of you have been there. So it was a big office, a huge big building. And as you do, you go into the office in the morning and you say to your colleagues, hello, good morning, how are you today? And for the most part, the answer would come, well, I'm surviving. And a thought would come to my mind, but to survive, like, is that enough? Just to survive, just to get through the day, just to survive and get through life? Is that it? There must be more. And of course, it became a kind of cliche term just to say that. But then I thought that simply to survive is what maybe a plant would do, a tree would do. But we are human beings. We have perspective, we have intelligence. We can change the way we see things to improve our life experience. And so the next group up, I would say, is those who exist. And to exist means you go through the day-to-day experiences of life. And sometimes you win, sometimes you lose. Sometimes you are praised, sometimes you are criticized. Sometimes you are the center of attention, other times everyone ignores you. But when you are in the existing mode, then the way you feel is based upon the things outside of you. So things are happening as per your wish. You may feel happy and content. If things are not happening as you like, you may be angry, frustrated, or upset. If people are behaving as per your desire, you may feel secure and comfortable. If people are behaving as per their desire, you may find yourself irritated. So in this existing mode, my internal emotional landscape, my emotional state, is a result of the things outside. Sometimes you feel happy, sometimes sad, sometimes elated, sometimes depressed, angry, etc., etc. And that's very tiring. It's rather like being on an emotional roller coaster. But then the smallest group, which I consider to be the top group, and I think that's the group that we are all interested to be in, that is of those who actually live. Now, what does it mean to live? To live means, yes, you go through all those experiences. Sometimes you win, you lose, criticized, praised, all those things happen. But when you live, it's as though you have made this decision that my peace of mind and my happiness is my personal property, non-negotiable. You don't allow what's happening outside to infiltrate and pollute and rob you of your peace of mind and your happiness. And you may have heard of this saying that a ship should move on the water, but the water should not enter inside the ship. So we live in a world where people and situations may not be as per my liking. There may be corruption, there may be deception, and so on. If we wish to live in the world, we need to learn how to protect our inner peace. And what is the difference between the existing mode and the living mode? I believe it comes down to one main thing, and that is the way I choose to see life, the perspective from which I choose to relate to situations and to people. Those who understand the Hindi language may know this phrase, which I love very much. Jaisi aapki drishti, waisi aapki srishti, which means as is your vision, so is your world. Now, generally what happens when we don't like someone or something, in our world, in our life, then we try to fight with that or change that. But I believe a smarter way to live, a spiritual approach to life, is where I ask myself, can I see this situation differently? Can I relate to this person from another perspective? I may not be able to control what life brings to me, but I can control how I choose to receive it. When we are consumed by what we don't like about other people or situations, we generate our own stress, our own anger, our own difficult emotions. But when we make the shift from trying to control what's on the outside into having better self-control of my response to the outside, notice a big shift in also our emotional state. If we try and represent it like this, let's say over here is life, and here is me as a person. And the tendency that most of us have is we try to control life, especially the people in our lives. And we believe that if I can control people in my life, I'll be secure, I'll be happy, I'll be at peace. But the news is you cannot control life. You cannot even control one other person. If you try to control life, you will necessarily become stressed. But between me and life, there is my mind. And if my mind is in my control, then life is not able to stress me. In a nutshell, that's the main work to do when it comes to personal evolution. Shift the desire for control from controlling people and life to having control over my own mind. Now, to be able to do this, it requires us to be intelligent. So let's have a look at intelligence for a moment before we go further. So I've got these little visuals which I hope are going to help to explain some things. I think you can see this. It seems fairly clear. Yeah, okay. So these are four intelligences. The one which we are most used to hearing about is, of course, this one, IQ. That's a person's rational intelligence. And for many years, this was the only one that people really talked about. It was a way of measuring how well a person would do in academic life, in career, and so on. And if somebody scored high on an IQ test, then we would say she or he is very intelligent. But this is no longer enough for successful living today. So the next one up here is known as IC. And as you can see, this stands for a person's intuitive capacity. Now, what does that mean? So intuitive capacity is your inner wisdom. Every person, every soul has something called inner wisdom or the inner voice. But for the most part, people are unable to hear it. The reason for this is because the mind is too noisy, too chatty all the time. Too many thoughts, too many desires, too many emotions. And as a result, it's like trying to hear a voice in a storm. You know something is there, but you can't hear it. If we allow our minds to become quiet, we're able to emerge that inner wisdom and use it in our daily decision making. And life is very different when you allow your inner wisdom to be your compass in your life. Not just for the big decisions, but in everyday life, how to handle a difficult personality. What to do when something does not work out? What attitude to have to somebody who is against me? That inner wisdom will emerge and tell you what is the appropriate response at that time. And one of the things that really helps with this is the practice of relaxation, reflection, meditation. And so let's do this. Before we go further, let's do a little exercise in just seeing how easy it is to calm the mind, to make the mind quiet, and to visit the peace which is inside ourselves. So I'd like to suggest we do this practice which is known as creative visualization. And it just takes about 3 or 4 minutes. So what I'd suggest is if you are on a chair, try to have your back straight and have your feet flat on the floor. And I will guide you with a simple commentary, and you just follow as best as you can. If you wish to close your eyes, you may do that for this particular exercise. Okay, so this is called the quiet room. And so let's just take a few moments to relax the body and also to relax the mind. For these few moments, I want to experience the peace which is already inside me. And so just bring your attention in towards yourself. And now bring your attention up towards your face. And bring your attention to the center of your forehead. And here, at the center of your forehead, picture a small room. The small room in the center of your forehead is your quiet room of peace. Just visualize this very pleasant, quiet room of peace in the center of your forehead. This is your private and personal space. When you are inside your quiet room, you feel very relaxed. Inside your quiet room, you are safe, secure. You are free from the pressures and the demands of the outside world. And you can let go of your daily roles and responsibilities. feel the peace and the wonderful silence of your quiet room. And just allow your mind to absorb this atmosphere of serenity, tranquility. And as you do so, the thoughts begin to slow down. The mind becomes calm, quiet, relaxed, peaceful, and free. Just be with this feeling of peace in your mind for 1 minute. Okay, thank you. So, hoping you feel a little more relaxed. And if you do, then I would suggest you try to build this into your life every day, at least once or twice a day. Once mid-morning, maybe once mid-afternoon, because as your mind is looked after better, if your mind is respected more, then you will naturally have a greater self-control as you pass through the day. And what I find is in most big cities today, life is disrespectful to the mind. So much information, so many things to process. And just as our body requires food, oxygen, etc., water, sleep, so too the mind requires and deserves peace. So hopefully this will help to develop one's own personal inner strength. So let's look more closely at anger and what is this whole thing called anger. Now, some people, they get more angry in their relationship with themselves. So, for example, if they keep making the same mistake again and again, it's self-directed anger, frustration. Or another very common one, of course, is you want to go on a diet and you do it perfectly for 2 days. And then you break that and then you start again, you break it again, start again. You get very upset with yourself. Then there are people who get very angry with other people, which is also a big area to look at. Why people become angry with others. And then the third area is anger with machines. Could be your phone, it could be your laptop, things which just refuse to work, especially when you need them. So there are two main ways by which people manifest their anger. Some people, they will explode with anger. So there is the explosion. And so when people explode with anger, then they shout and they scream, they raise their voice, they will slam car doors, slam the front door, they will thump things down on the table. They may even make cups and saucers fly in the kitchen. So when there is explosive anger, it's very obvious this person is angry and out of control. And of course, it ruins the whole atmosphere in the house or in the office. And when somebody else is in a state of anger, explosive anger, there is no point in trying to reason with that person or trying to talk to them logically, because they're unable to listen to anything when they are caught in this red mist called anger. Anger also has been described as a temporary form of insanity. When you are angry, you are technically mad at that time. Try looking in the mirror next time you're angry. You will look like a crazy person. It is also said anger is blind, in the sense that you may spend years building something up, and in a moment of anger, you can destroy everything. You don't realize what you're doing when you're angry. You can destroy your own property. And of course, even worse is violence towards others, even towards loved ones, which then later you may regret. So there is explosive anger which manifests in these ways. But then there are people who don't explode with anger, but they go the other way. They implode with anger. And so as the term suggests, when you explode, the energy is just expressed outward. And when one implodes with anger, it's still the same energy, but it's being pushed inside. And there, it's not as though I am controlling the anger, but I'm just suppressing my emotions from coming out. And indications of what happens when someone is experiencing implosive anger is such a person will cut the communication. They will stop talking to you. They will begin to ignore you. They won't take your calls. And by ignoring you, they want you to suffer. They want to see you in some pain before they're ready to start talking again. Isn't it odd how humans behave? And also it is said in a state of implosive anger, we practice selective deafness and selective blindness, which is where we see everyone in the room, we hear everyone in the room, except the person I feel angry with. Can't hear what he is saying, didn't see him. Now, of course, even in implosive anger, if I'm carrying that energy in my mind, then who is suffering? It's me who's suffering. And so we know that when you carry any kind of negative energy in your mind, firstly, physically, your body will suffer. I believe pretty much all physical ailments have their roots in our mind and emotions. So not a good idea to harbor feelings of revenge or grudges or anger in the mind, because my own physical health will suffer. But secondly, psychologically, there'll be complications too. It will not allow me to express the best of myself. It will block my own happiness. So what to do? How to deal with this energy called anger? Well, there are what we may call as some short-term remedies, but then there is the long-term solution, which is the thing I think we're really interested in. So here are some short-term remedies. One is to do something called postponement. Postpone the anger. And it's like this. Let's say something happens, or someone says something you don't like, and you feel that anger rising in you. You feel you want to be angry and maybe shout. Of course, it's your mind that is feeling like that. And remember, the mind is a child. Now, children can be very sweet, very cute, very nice, but also children can't wait for something. I want this and I want it now. And children know only what they want, not what they need. And so you have to be a good parent to your mind. So you say to your mind, okay, mind, what he or she said was not very kind. So yes, let's be angry, but mind, let's do it after 1 minute, okay? And 1 minute later, you say, okay, mind, let's be angry, but can we delay it by 30 seconds more? 30 seconds later, you say, okay, let's be angry, but can we give it another 15 seconds? This way you keep delaying the outburst of that emotion. And as you delay or as you postpone it, the intensity of that emotion will begin to reduce. And this will give you the chance to regain your self-control. Try it. Next time you feel that anger welling up inside you, mind, okay, don't say don't be angry, say let's be angry. But after a minute, after half a minute more, give it another 20 seconds. And of course, one of the things you realize is, in fact, your anger is nothing to do with some other person. Your anger is nothing to do with the situation. Your anger is only to do between the relationship of you and your own mind. Other people are triggers, but they're not the cause of the anger. Now, for example, one thing that people often say is, I'm pretty much okay with everyone. I don't really get irritated, but there's this one person in my life, one person who just pushes my buttons. Do you have one such person in your life? Who has one difficult person in their life? Do you raise your hand? I think we'll probably all raise hands. And we say this one person seems to have a degree, a PhD in irritating me, as though this individual has been parachuted strategically into my life just to give me anguish. So what to do if somebody pushes your buttons? How to stop this? How to change this situation? Well, usually what happens when somebody pushes your own buttons, you look for theirs to push back. And so then we get involved in a button pushing contest. You push my button, I push yours. You push mine, I push yours. And of course, this is another sign of madness. But there's only one way you can really change this situation, and that is where you learn to deactivate your buttons. In other words, I learn how to have greater self-control. I learn how to be more stable emotionally. I learn how to not take the bait. Now, what happens then? Let's say, for example, you go into a lift. You push the button and it doesn't work. What would you do? Initially, you may push all the buttons and say, what's wrong with this silly lift? The lift is not going anywhere. And so you get out of the lift and you take the stairs. The lift gives you that message, we're not going anywhere. In the same way, the more I develop self-control, the more I learn to own my peace, own my happiness, then I'm giving a non-verbal message to the other person. Non-verbal. That message is, you can no longer upset me. You can no longer make me angry. You can no longer make me feel bad. Don't say it. If you say it, then there'll be more of a reaction, but it's a non-verbal message. And this will eventually cause the other person to change their behavior towards you. This highlights one of the important principles of living with spirituality, and that is that never ask to be respected, but work on raising your self-respect. If my self-respect is high, I will naturally command respect from others. If my self-respect is low, I will demand respect from others and I won't get real respect. In simple terms, my relationship with others is a reflection of my relationship with myself. To maintain self-respect means I make that pledge, I make that contract with myself. My peace of mind, my happiness is my personal property, non-negotiable, full stop. No matter what happens, no matter who says what, I'm not going to let go of my peace of mind and my happiness. If I'm respecting that, if I'm paying attention to that, life and relationships begin to notice and begin to correspond to that, begin to respect that also. So postponement is one thing we can practice in terms of a short-term remedy. Excuse me. A second strategy to try out is something we may call as to defuse the anger bomb. Now, just like if the police finds a bomb somewhere, they cut the wires, they defuse it before it goes off. In the same way, how to defuse the anger bomb before it explodes. Well, what helps for this is to find a word or a phrase or a sentence which is personally meaningful to you that you can remind yourself of to change the direction of your thoughts. So let's say you are feeling angry because of something, because of someone, and those thoughts of anger come, such as how dare he talks to me like this, or what gives her the right to make this decision, or how could they so and so. These kinds of thoughts come, which then are going to lead to anger. At that time, use a meaningful defusing phrase. Here are some examples. You may use these, or you may, of course, find your own, which touch your heart. So, for example, one person uses this phrase that the way that person speaks is his or her choice. The way I feel is my choice. So it's not I'm talking to the other person, I'm talking to my mind. I'm telling my mind, don't feel offended because of this person's attitude. No, that's his business. That's his choice. But the way I feel is my choice. I choose to keep my dignity. I choose to keep my peace. I choose to keep my self-respect. So I am talking to and reminding my own mind. Or another example, one lady uses the phrase, when she finds herself getting irritated or frustrated, she just reminds herself, using her own name, she says, there are worse things happening in the world than this. Because what leads to anger is our perspective of life becomes very narrow. When we see things from a very narrow perspective, we take everything personally. We take everything too seriously. And the result of that is a little situation creates a big emotional reaction. So at that time, a phrase such as, okay, this is not good, the situation is not good, the person said something not good, but there are worse things happening in the world. At that moment, you have widened your perspective and you see things more in proportion. Other simple phrases could be something just like, let it go. Just let it go. It's not worth losing your peace for this. Then it's a question of practicing to deploy these phrases into your personal life and relationships. And as I mentioned earlier, it's good if you can think for yourself, what phrase, what word, or what image can I deploy into my thinking in the heat of the moment? When you feel your anger is rising, at that moment you have to remember it. It's easy to do this when you're not angry. The test is when the situation comes which you don't like, that time I have to remember it. So some people even find it useful to make a little list of phrases that are meaningful for you, write them somewhere and stick them where you can see. Just like people have diagrams of diets they want to go on, or foods which are good for you, foods which are not good for you in their kitchen or their fridge. So too for the mind, little thoughts, little slogans which reminds you of your self-respect and your dignity. So these are two little things which can help to postpone and to diffuse the anger. Now, I'm hoping this is making sense so far before we come to the last part. The last part is then really how to deal with the very roots of anger. It's one thing to deal with the symptoms, and we need those skills, which we have talked about. But then the question is, why do we become angry in the first place? Why does anger happen? Under which circumstances does anger arise for me personally? And what's going on when I am generating the anger emotion? What am I trying to achieve by becoming angry? What is anger an attempt to reach? So if we decode anger, if we look at the chemistry of anger, then we'll see what's actually going on there. Because different emotions have different coded messages. Why, for example, is it that one gets angry when we don't like something? Usually I find in terms of dealing with people, 4 main behaviors of other people cause anger to others. I think maybe the biggest one is injustice. When there is injustice towards you, or you see injustice happening to somebody else, you may begin to experience anger. Another is dishonesty. If somebody is telling you lies in your face, and you know that person is lying, and he knows that you know he's lying, and you know that he knows that you know that he's lying, but the game goes on. And you think, what is this? So injustice, dishonesty. Another one is disrespect. And disrespect can be in the way somebody behaves towards you, or it can be in the street, in cars, the way they drive their cars. Different forms of the way disrespect is shown. And the fourth one I find is irresponsibility. Where somebody says they're going to do something, but they don't do it, and they don't tell you, and then you have to rush to do it. So these things happen. But still the question arises, even though these things may happen, why do I feel angry? Why doesn't some other emotion come out in those situations? Why not guilt? Why not fear? Why not jealousy? Why not happiness? Why not love? Why anger? What is this thing called anger? Why does this particular emotion come in this particular situation? Well, if we really analyze it deeply, what we will find is that behind anger, the main tendency, which is a mistake, is the tendency to try to control. That is the mistake. By being angry, I am trying to control someone or something. And as long as that controlling tendency is there, anger will always be there. The reality is nobody else makes you angry. No person, no situation makes you angry. Your laptop, your mobile phone does not make you angry. But it's actually you are generating that emotion of anger by yourself. So how to get rid of this tendency of controlling? Let's spend a few minutes looking at that now. So here I've drawn up a little diagram, which is called the control continuum. And this is just telling us about what you can control and what you cannot control. So what sort of things can we not control? 0% control. In terms of what makes you feel angry. Okay, you may say it's traffic, it's politicians. Some people get angry when there's noise. And then other human behaviors. As I mentioned earlier, there's, what do we say, disrespect, injustice, irresponsibility, and so on. Now, if I try to control that which cannot be controlled, the result is I will experience stressful emotions. And the main one is anger. But in addition, there could be anxiety, there can be fear, there can be revenge, jealousy. All of these are called ego-based emotions, because I'm trying to control that which cannot be controlled. But the thing to do is to shift my desire for control to over here. What can you control 100%, at least potentially? The only thing you can control is yourself. And yourself means you can control your responses. You can control your attitude. You can control your words, and eventually even your thoughts. So the main solution, the main remedy to dealing with anger and all these stressful emotions is to shift the desire for control from here to over here. In other words, reminding myself, I can't control this person, I can't control this situation, but I can control my response to this person, my response to this situation. And it's the phrase which we often use in many contexts, shift from reacting to responding. When I react, I am out of control. Somebody has pressed a button and I'm reacting. Responding, I see what's happening, I hear what's happening, I think about it, and I choose what to say, when to say, how much to say, if I want to say. The response is it's a coordinated expression. It's coming from my choice. Reaction is I'm a slave. If I react to someone at that moment, I'm a slave, and somebody else is the master. Do I want to live like that? No. So therefore, reminding myself of this, take back control, take back self-control. And you begin to notice, as I mentioned earlier, the more my own mind becomes my friend, the more my peace and happiness becomes my own property, everything in my life will upgrade. All my relationships, the way I perform at work, the way I handle situations, because life is the ultimate mind game. Okay? Here's a little formula which summarizes some of these things, something which can help us to remember. So as you see, E plus R equals O. So E stands for the event. The event means the person outside you, the situation you don't like. And R stands for my response to it. O is the outcome. So there are two kinds of outcomes in our lives. There are outcomes that we are pleased with, so no problem there. But then there are outcomes I am not pleased with. An outcome could be some situation at work or the state of a particular relationship in your life. So for those outcomes that I am not pleased with, which of these two, E or R, am I trying to control and change? If I'm trying to control E, the event, then hello stress, hello anger. I'm going to live with those kinds of emotions. If instead I shift my desire for control or change to my response, be more focused on my response, I have just as much influence over the outcome. Yeah, can you see? Both E and R result in the outcome. Let go of being too concerned with E, pay more attention to dealing with things. In other words, how should be my response? And you'll find, especially in relationships, if you find anger happens for you in maybe a particular relationship with a particular person, usually it's someone near to you, someone close to you, maybe someone you're living with. It's just there that, these niggly little things happen. But then I have to remind myself, okay, I don't like the way she talks, I don't like the way he behaves, but let me focus on my response, how I wish to respond. So the mind is letting go of trying to control the other. And instead, that energy comes back to me and is helping me to upgrade my response to the other. Okay, do I have time to show one more thing?
Yes, brother, go ahead.
Yeah, okay. So here is another, I find very important little equation to be aware of. And it leads us really to, again, to freedom in terms of how we wish to feel. So I'm hoping you can see this. So this tells us that we are all surrounded by events. Events means all the things happening around us. It could be something in your home, it could be something in the street, or it could be what you see on the world news. And there's not so much you can do about the events around you. We walk through the streets, we see billboards, we see all kinds of things, and our mind is giving meaning to what we see. And humans are sometimes called as meaning-making machines. So the event is outside of me, but with my mind, I am giving meaning to that event. And we do this all the time. There may be some situation in front of me, in front of all of us, one situation, one event, but each one is giving meaning from their own mind. The result of the meaning that you give is the emotion that is created. That's the sequence. First, something happens, then your mind gives meaning to it, The result is the emotion you generate. This happens very fast. Event meaning emotion, event meaning emotion. But because this happens very, very quickly, we don't realize that we, in fact, are giving meaning to the event. And the illusion that we are under is that the event has directly created the emotion. That's what we think happens, but it's not true. So, for example, we say things like, because of what you said yesterday, I feel very angry. So I'm saying that event is creating my emotion. Or because of such and such a situation, I am upset. I'm saying because of the situation, I got upset. But not true. I'm not angry because of what you said. I'm angry because of the meaning I'm giving to what you said. I'm not angry because of some event or upset because of some event. I'm upset because of the meaning I'm giving to the event. That's creating my upset. Now, this is both bad news and good news for us. Bad news is there is no one else who is responsible for your negative emotions. There is no one to blame. Sorry about that. But the good news is exactly the same, which means the way I feel at any moment is entirely in my own hands. If I choose to own the meaning, let me not be concerned too much with the event. Let me be more concerned with owning the meaning I choose to give to a situation. And let me work on upgrading or improving the meaning. Change the meaning, and you change the emotion. That's how this internal engineering works. Let go of being consumed by what you don't like. Choose to give higher meaning, better meaning to it, and your own emotions are in your control. And then you realize, when we get angry, when I'm angry, it's like I am asleep at that time. I'm asleep to the power which I have. I'm asleep to my internal technology. I remember a friend of mine saying once that when somebody is angry, that person is declaring to others, I am a fool. I don't have self-control. It's like a declaration to others. So to be self-aware, to be spiritually aware, okay, there are many things we don't like about others. There are many behaviors of others which may not be according to my preference, but that's life. Life is a theater. But let me own my peace, own my happiness, and move through life, keeping those two things in my own hands. Okay, so there's, of course, much, much more to say on this important topic. But I think that's probably enough for now. So I hope it makes sense.
Thank you. Thank you, brother. It is indeed very eye-opening, and it feels like today you have shared with us a secret recipe, because whoever knows you, I'm sure, is very well aware that you never get angry. So it's like your secret recipe that you have shared with us today. So I would like to request everyone who would like to ask questions, kindly drop your questions on the chat box, and I shall then read them out to Brother Yogesh. And in the meanwhile, brother, I would like to highlight some of the points that I felt really touched me.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Have a glass.
So I really like that the way I choose to see and relate to things and people. So basically I have my remote control in my hand. and what you said, that as is your vision and so is your world. Because there are many more, like what you shared about SQ, EQ, IC, and IQ. What we normally concentrate on is our IQ. Even when bringing up children, we always concentrate on their IQ. We make sure that their IQ level is in par, if not better, you know. So that is indeed a very good thought that you brought to our mind today. And life is disrespectful to the mind. So these points have really been very touching, very inspiring. And I have a question which has been actually sent to me before this talk started, is that everyone experiences anger, and it seems completely normal emotion, and it's healthy within limits. But anger can become a problem when it gets out of control. So when is anger healthy, and when does it become harmful or out of control?
Okay. Firstly, let's look at the word normal. When somebody's saying it's normal, what is normal? What's normal today? You know, who's normal today? Are you normal? Am I normal? Normal is what the majority does. And when the majority starts doing something different, we call it the new normal. But normal is different to natural. And one of the basic foundations of the study we do, and I think the spiritual journey in any context, is that the real nature of the human soul is actually very beautiful, very pure, very divine. And the spiritual journey is nothing more than a return journey back to that beauty and back to that fullness. So in that context, anger has been described, as I mentioned earlier, as a form of insanity. Anger, you may call it irritation, you may call it frustration, you may call it being annoyed. You know, we all experience that to different extents. And it's not so harmful when it's just a little irritation. You may say it's not so bad or it doesn't hurt others. True. But if we really wish to return to true peace, then even that irritation is something that's actually, it's like bleeding the soul of its energy. So in that sense, if I use the word meditation, it comes from the Latin word medere. And medere means to heal. The healing of the soul, healing from anger, healing from ego, healing from all these emotions. So it's possible to be completely without anger, but also important to say it doesn't mean you become passive and you do nothing. It doesn't mean you allow things to be as they are. You can be very focused, very purposeful, very determined, very firm, but without the energy of anger. And I have seen, some people like that, some great yogis, and Sister Javine has seen them too, that nothing will shake them, but it doesn't mean that they are, distant to life. Very involved, very firm decision makers, making sometimes hard and unpopular decisions, but without the anger energy. Because ultimately, the energy of anger is destructive, and it's not good for me on any level, and not good in our relationships also.
There are some questions, brother. Do you have some time? Because we have some questions here. Thank you, brother. You have given such a wonderful insight into the topic. I would like to ask if postponement is not the same as implode, as we are keeping it inside for a while?
Yeah. Well, postponement is as I mentioned earlier, it's a short-term remedy just to make you feel good at that time. But what we really need is the long-term solution. So postponement is I am allowing the energy to reduce, the intensity of the emotion to reduce. Implosion is, yeah, I'm holding it inside and I'm waiting for a moment perhaps for a big explosion to happen. The result of implosion is the pressure gradually builds up, and one day there is a nuclear explosion, a big meltdown. Postponement is I acknowledge I'm not feeling good, I delay it, so gradually it begins to peter out. Of course, in postponement, why postponement is only a short-term remedy is because the tendency to get angry next time is still there. And that's why the long-term method of letting go of the tendency to control, that also has to be deployed to remove anger from its roots.
The next question is, one question is that mind of children and people around us are programmed on anger. When we are easy on them, they take us for granted. So how do we deal with them?
Yeah, well, especially with children, of course, one's own behavior has the greatest impact on others. People will remember how you behave more than what you say. So how not to be taken advantage of? Well, there's two extremes here. Some people become aggressive when they don't like being taken advantage of. They may shout or get confrontational or get involved in an argument, shout and scream. Well, some people go right the other way and they become passive. They do nothing. They become like a doormat, and then others ride over them and manipulate them, take advantage. But neither of these two extremes is really healthy. But I believe to be in the middle is the place to be, and that's called to be assertive. When you're assertive, you maintain your self-respect, you maintain your composure, your dignity, and actually you have dignity for the other soul as well. When you're assertive, you speak. You say what needs to be said. You deal with the situation without shyness, without hesitation. You are firm, but you're not confrontational. You're not getting into a fight. And people listen to you when you're assertive, not when you're aggressive. When you're aggressive, you will hurt people, and people will look for revenge. That revenge may be they stop talking to you or they don't work as hard as they normally do. But in assertiveness, there is self-respect, there's respect for the other. And even though somebody may not like what you say, but they will feel deep down it's the right thing to say. If I'm firm on my being assertive, it really stabilizes relationships.
Someone on YouTube has asked a question. How do you control our frustration if we have some plan and illusion?
If we have
some plan or illusion.
How do we control our frustration if we have some plan or illusion? You mean which does not become reality, I suppose?
I suppose, yes.
Yeah. Well, I mean, of course, depends on the situation, what that plan is, how realistic it is. If it is not becoming a reality, look at the reasons for that. Is there something more I need to do in order to make it happen? And generally speaking, there are three things we need to make plan become practical. I just mention them without going too much into them. The first thing is you need to be focused. If you're not focused, then part of your energy is going towards the plan, another part is going somewhere else. Another part may be going in the opposite direction. So focus is the first thing. Second thing is you need the will to do it. Do I really want this plan to happen? Or is it just a feeling, just a desire? How much really do I want to do this? How much attention am I prepared to make? How much am I prepared to sacrifice what is needed to make this plan practical? The third thing you require are the skills, the capability, and the know-how. Maybe I need some training. Maybe I need to learn a bit more about how to do things. So check these three things and see what may be lacking, fill what is lacking, and then the rubber meets the road. The plan becomes practical.
There are plenty questions, brother, but I think we will not be able to cover them all. So we'll take this last one. Please share more positive responses in most critical situations.
Most positive responses in critical situations.
Yes.
Well, a fairly broad question. I would say that the main one is this, and it's something I was told when I was a kid, and I always remember that whenever you face any kind of adversity, the first thing to do is to stabilize your mind in your self-respect. First do that, then look at the situation. Don't immediately start thinking, what should I do? Who should I call? What's the right thing to do? No. Be still, be in your peace. Be in that thought, I am a peaceful soul, I am a powerful soul, I am a joyful soul. Remind yourself of your self-respect. This will make you feel stable, safe, strong, and secure. And when the mind is stable, your intellect becomes very clear. And then you're able to see what to do in a situation. Usually what happens when the mind is jumping up and down with many thoughts, then we cannot see a solution in front of us, even if that solution is jumping up and down saying, here I am. So the main thing is this, keep the mind still, remember your self-respect, solve yourself first before you try to solve a problem. And see how much easier life is when I've learned the art of managing the peace, the stability of my own mind.
Thank you, brother. Maybe we could end this session by having something like what you did earlier, taking us to the quiet room so that we can practice it daily.
Yeah, sure. All right. Okay, so once again, ask everybody if you can have your back straight, your feet on the floor. So it's important to be alert, but also comfortable as well. Excuse me. So once again, I just spend a few moments to be with myself. And I start by asking myself the question, who am I? I know that in daily life, I play many different roles. I carry different labels, and I wear various masks. But I know there is more to me than these labels, these roles, and these masks. Who am I behind these labels? Who am I behind the masks? When I look in the mirror, I see the reflection of my face, my body, but I know there is more to me than simply this. And so I bring my attention up towards my face and up to the center of the forehead. And here, at the center of the forehead, I picture a star of peaceful light. Just to visualize this wonderful star of peaceful light at the center of your forehead. And from this star, waves of peaceful energy are radiating in all four directions, sending peace and healing energy to every part of the body. This wonderful star of peaceful light, this is me. This is I, the eternal soul. I, the soul, I am peace. I am light. I am eternal. And this peace has always been inside me. Now I choose to emerge this peace once again. All I have to do is just remember. Remember, I am peace, I am light, I am eternal, I am free.
Once again, thank you very much, brother. I think the last thought that you said is, I am free. That word free and that feeling that came is just makes you feel so happy. So thank you very much once again for sharing with us your wisdom today. And thank you everyone for joining us today for this session. We will be having sessions like this. So do let me know, drop me a message so that I can keep you updated on the upcoming events. Thank you. Thank you very much. Om Shanti.
All the best. Bye bye.